have a lot to do today, so please quiet down. All right, so most of the juniors and some seniors aren't here, but we have an awesome speaker for you all today, and to introduce him is Dr. Frank. Oh, also, sorry, I don't know why I forgot. The 8th grade is here for the first time, actually in our assembly. Sorry, 8th grade, I apologize. We are really happy to have you here. You guys are going to be voting after this. So I hope you have a great time. Here is Dr. Frank.
Good morning. All organizations, for profit and not-for-profit, are businesses of one kind or another. And certainly a school is a specific kind of business. And so you're going to hear this morning from Bob Haugh, who's my partner in helping run the Parker School, and the business side of it as our Chief Financial Officer. He's going to talk to you about how we construct our annual budget.
Thanks, Dan.
Try for short bursts rather than, because otherwise it'll be huge files.
Great, thank you. Basically, I think there are a couple of things that I'd like to set you guys up for. Just explaining the business office. Many of you may know the business office is located across the street, as well as the development office, which is our fundraising arm of the school. Taking a look at what the business office responsibilities are, a lot of it has to do with our cash management, sending out tuition invoices and collecting tuition, as well as payroll. All that stuff gets handled through the business office. Accounts payable, paying the bills. Our annual audit in the summertime, when school is out, the auditors come in and spend a lot of time with the business office going through all the books and records. And so it's a quieter time for us to handle that. As you can imagine, anytime you're going through an audit, there's a lot of work to do there. And then the budget, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes, is one of the more important aspects of what the business office is responsible for. Just monitoring the budget, establishing the budget, and then resolving any issues that might crop up. And then financial reporting, putting together the financial statements and submitting information to both our board of trustees as well as the couple of banks that we have relationships with. The organization, just the small piece that I'm in charge of overseeing, is related to the business office, of course, as I mentioned, but also our Director of HR, which is Human Resources, Director of IT, Pete Evans, many of you know Pete, and his team, as well as Rick Dusing, the Director of Facilities, and his team for both security and the maintenance of the school. The budget calendar is the work that we begin in the summertime before school even starts. And we're really working toward the deadline of February 1st or on or around February 1st to issue all of the re-enrollment contracts. And so working backwards, it's important for us to have meetings with all of the faculty department chairs as well as the administrators to determine what budget needs there might be for the coming school year and get all of those priorities settled. And so you can see in the month of September, I spent a great bit of time in a lot of meetings talking about what budget needs there are throughout the school. Then we begin a process of reviewing what those needs are with a series of different meetings with the executive committee of the board, the administrative team, the finance committee of the board, and then finally in December, we present the budget with what our needs might be, what our needs request is for that next year coming up. The board then reviews that information. The following meeting, they'll approve the budget, and then we begin to notify the parents and families of what the tuition increase will be, as well as begin to have these kinds of conversations with our community. So we'll invite the parents in to have a question and answer session about the budgeting process. Yesterday I spent some time with the employees and gave them a presentation about the budgeting process and other financial aspects of the school, and I'm here this morning. And then the enrollment contracts are due back to us on February 10th. And so that'll give us an idea of who's coming back and what openings we might have, and we begin the enrollment process for new students. Our endowment is a very important part of the school. You may hear people talk about that a lot. It's essentially a savings account. And so what we do each year is we take a small part of our savings account and help fund the school operations. It's important for us to be careful about how much money we're going to take from that savings account so that it continues to grow over time. The people that have given us the money as a gift certainly gave it to us with the hope that it would be here forever. And so what we try to do is have the money make some earnings each year, and therefore, over time, the balance continues to grow. In addition to that, we create or initiate fundraising activities. So right now, we're at the near end of a campaign where we're out fundraising for money for the endowment, as well as for this facility. When we built the auditorium, we did that with the help of a lot of very generous families and friends of Parker. And the endowment is just the same thing. We need help in order to build that balance so that it can help fund the operations of the school in a more meaningful way. And so you can see that over time, the endowment the campaign has contributed over $11 million to the endowment in the past 5 years. And so not only have we had some rocky investment performance like everyone has, but the investments have gone up because we've had new money to put in as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have to be careful about how much money we take out of the endowment. This slide here illustrates that over time, certainly in consideration of what's been happening in the stock market, we've been more careful in what we've taken from the endowment. And you can see there the last 3 years we've taken 2% of the balance and put it into the operating budget of the school. And in the past, when the stock market performance may have been different and more robust, we were able to take a little bit more money out of the endowment. This slide illustrates the revenue, the money that comes into the school and where it comes from. You can see that most of the money we raise every year is from tuition and fees. And that's an important understanding as it relates to the tuition and fees need to cover most of our revenue needs. And we're in good shape there with 87% of our operating budget revenue coming from tuition and fees. 8% of the revenue is with annual fundraising. Every year we ask families and friends of Parker to contribute to the school on an annual basis. And then also 4% of the revenue comes from our endowment. And then there's a small portion from other activities, like renting the auditorium and other activities. The expenses of the school, as you might guess, most of the money we spend is related to the student activities and what's happening in the classroom. 70% of our expenses are related to instruction. 17% through the administrative offices and the grounds. Taking that same list of expenses and slicing it differently, it's important to understand that this is a people business and that a lot of our expenses, 77% of our expense structure is related to the salaries and benefits of all the employees of the school, faculty and staff. 11% are educational departments. Those are classroom materials, books, the athletics budget, things that go on throughout the school. Facilities maintenance is 6%. The administration and development expenses are 3%. And then capital expenditures such as repairs on the facility as well as replacement of technology, computers and such are 3% of our expenses. We belong to a couple of different groups of independent schools that provide us with some comparable information. One of those is this group JRPO, and it's a 50-school group of very similar schools to Parker, and we compare all of our financial information to them so that we can get some bearing on where we're at. If there's any issues, things we don't compare favorably, we'll look into more deeply. Things that we compare very favorably, those schools will ask us, what are we doing differently so that we can help them as well. You'll notice that we're at the high end of how much money we're focusing on the instruction expenses of the school. And so I think that's a good sign that we're really cognizant of that, making sure that we're spending money appropriately on the kids and on the educational experience. You can see the administrative expenses on a comparative basis are on the low end, as well as the plant expense is kind of in the middle of the road for these 50 schools. Financial aid is a very key component to the mission of Parker, and it's very important to understand that we're committed to funding financial aid, and you can see there, that's an illustration of how much of our tuition revenue do we set aside for financial aid, and it's typically between 11 and 12%. This compares favorably with other schools. As you can see, this is the financial aid. 17% 17% of our enrollment is students on financial aid. Total percentage of our gross tuition revenue, as I said earlier, is 12%. You can see that we're in the middle to the higher end on that comparison. And then the average award as a percentage of our average tuition is about 70%. And you should know that we have families that have financial aid, they get 10% help just to get them over the hump, if you will. And then we have some families that are provided 90 or 95% financial aid coverage. And every year, families go through a very rigorous financial assessment to determine what they might need so that we're able to fairly provide for them, as well as try and give as many families an opportunity and access to these resources as possible. This is a historical slide on our tuition increases. It's interesting, I get a lot of questions, as you might imagine, why does tuition have to go up? And it's important to understand that the expense structure of the school continues to move upward. The faculty and staff, of course, like anyone that works in a job, get some kind of raise on an annual basis. You don't keep the same salary every year for multiple years in a row. As you know, the cost of things goes up over time. And so what we're understanding is that our expense structure is always going to move up a little bit every year. And so we're going to need to raise tuition in order to at least keep up with those increases. There are other things that we don't have as much control over, like health insurance. Health insurance is a very significant part of our expense structure, and that can go up anywhere from 5 to 15%, depending on what's happening in the insurance world and what's happening with different things and different variables that go into those kinds of calculations that we honestly can't really control. And so we have to be responsive to those expenses and make sure that we're covering the costs so it doesn't impact what's happening in the classroom. For any questions? Yes, go ahead.
What happens? What happened in 2010 to 2011 that the endowment went up by so much compared to the rest of the graph?
No, I can't get back to it, but essentially new money, new donor money came in. As we talked about earlier, the campaign is really focused on the endowment, and that work is, honestly, showing results. And so ultimately, that was a result of, I think there was some investment return there too. I think 2010 was a good year in the market, so had a little bit of that, but also new contributions. Yes?
Looking at this sheet, it shows that, looking at the sheet shows that that all groups get different amounts.
I can't hear, I'm sorry.
That's something.
Why isn't there
Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Haugh? Does anyone have a question that they don't want to ask? And if you do, then raise your hand and our makeshift sergeant at arms will come around and write it on a sheet of paper for you in the next 2 seconds. All right, no more questions?
You should all know that if ever you have any questions and you don't want to do it in this kind of public forum, please stop by the business office. I'd be happy to spend as much time as you need just to better understand things and certainly answer any questions. But thank you. Thanks for the time.